All right, everybody, we are back this week for UFC Vegas 110, Garcia versus Onama, live from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada, with a featherweight main event between two streaking 145-pounders trying to get to a contender bout in the division between Steve the Mean Machine Garcia and the sharpshooter striker in David Onama. So without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. Alright guys, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about pre-fight and all that shit that makes this podcast way longer than it really needs to be. I want to keep this at 30 minutes or under. I always say that, and it's very hard to do, but we're going to try it out. Let's kick it off with the first fight up in the welterweight division. You have the Fresh Prince Phil Rowe taking on Suk Young Ko. I'm a big fan of Rowe. I've picked him on the podcast plenty of times. I picked him against Jake Matthews. I picked him by knockout against Ange Loosa. He's been competing in a lot of grappling matches outside the UFC. He trains with the likes of Mike Davis over at Fusion Excel. And, the guy's good. Rowe is comfortable on the ground. He's a little bit tricky off of his back. But the one thing that I think is going to play a bad hand for him in this fight is the fact that he's comfortable playing off of his back. And it's very hard to win a fight off your back in MMA unless you have very active and very effective submissions or sweeps off of your back. I don't see Rowe being able to come in and sweep a guy like Suk Young Ko. Suk Young Ko is a good striker. He's a southpaw. He moves in and out. He's very light on the feet. He's going to be at a reach disadvantage in this fight. Like, that's clear as day. But I don't really think he's going to play around too much on the feet. And if he does, I feel like that's a bad recipe for him against a guy like Rowe. But Rowe can be hurt. Rowe can be rocked. We've seen him get dropped. We've seen him get wobbled. We've seen him get put on his ass by the likes of Nico Price, and then he comes back, he wins by KO. Same thing happened against Ange Loosa to a certain extent, getting hurt, getting taken down, getting rocked, and then he comes back and he starts to put it on you. Rowe is a fighter who is a builder, okay? We talk about these guys who are builders in the UFC. Very good at kind of downloading the data, quote-unquote, early, but then he starts to pick it up later in the fight. His combinations start to work. He starts to put more volume on you. He starts to be more comfortable with his hands and managing the distance and the range. And Suk Young Ko, we haven't seen much of him. He came in as a huge underdog against Oban Elliott, takes him down, rinse and repeats, and even was outstriking him on the feet for as long as it stayed on the feet. Ko is not a traditional wrestler. He'll use judo throws, trips, inside and outside trips, hip tosses, and, unorthodox takedowns, which could technically work on a guy who's long and tall like Phil Rowe. And Rowe has a terrible takedown defense, and it's also a fight where Rowe has never won a decision. Every time Phil Rowe goes to the scorecards, he doesn't win. So he's never won a decision in the UFC. I don't think he's ever won a decision in his career in general, but I know he's never won one inside the UFC octagon. And against a guy like Ko, who's comfortable on the feet, has a good straight left from southpaw, a solid 1-2, he has good reactions, but he's really good at taking his opponents down and controlling them, getting to the top, putting his hooks in, loosening them up with ground and pound, transitioning from position to position to position, and not getting tired and continuing to push with those takedowns. I feel like that's a bad recipe for Rowe. I could see a late KO from Phil Rowe. I think it's live because of how long and rangy he is. If he's able to keep it on the feet, he is going to have the advantage. But I think Ko is competent enough on the feet to land his straight left hand, to land his 1-2, to land some good shots, but use that to close the distance and get Rowe down and keep him down. So I'm going to go Suk Young Ko. I think he wins, and I think he wins probably a boring decision, but the submission is live. I would play Ko sub 2-3 if I'm looking for like a finish prop, but I'm going to take Suk Young Ko to win 29-28 unanimous decision, potentially 30-27, but I'll play on the safe side. So give me Ko to win. I think he grapples, and I think he does it effectively. 29-28 unanimous decision for Suk Young Ko here. All right, next fight up is in the women's bantamweight division. You have a battle between Ketlin Vieira taking on Norma Dumont. This is a Norma Dumont spot for me all day, but it's women's MMA, so you probably want to stay away from it. But I think Dumont is just at a different level at this point in her career compared to Ketlin Vieira. Vieira technically has more UFC experience, but I feel like Dumont has probably beat the better fighters, and she's looked better in beating those fighters. Dumont's long, rangy. She basically out-kickboxed Irene Aldana, who, isn't the best kicker, but she's one of the best strikers in the women's divisions. Most of the time when you're beating a girl like Irene Aldana, you have to take her down, you have to control her on the mat, and you have to use your wrestling to be able to win those type of fights. But Norma Dumont didn't do that. She stayed on the outside. She used that long jab, the long check hook. She used some good kicks to the body, good kicks up top to the head, and she just outstruck her and did so with some finesse on top of it. I feel like, Vieira's much slower. And the only real way she wins this fight, I think, is if she takes down Dumont and holds her down. And I don't see this being a scenario where Vieira gets takedowns and just controls her and lays on top of her for at least 2 rounds. I think maybe 1 round she could get a takedown, get on top, and control her from the top position. But I think for the most part, it's probably going to play out as a kickboxing match, and I don't see Ketlen Vieira beating a girl like Norma Dumont in a kickboxing match. I think Dumont is faster. I think Dumont uses her length and reach better. I think Dumont has better footwork, and I think she can walk Vieira into big shots. Vieira is kind of a plotter on the feet. She has decent striking, decent boxing, but she kind of just shells up and looks to counter and walk forward. I think walking forward against a girl like Dumont is going to get you lit up every which way but Sunday, and I think she's just going to continue to kind of dance around the octagon, and the only real thing she has to worry about is getting hit with a big shot, which I don't find very likely unless it's Dumont actually clipping Vieira with a big shot, because we've seen Vieira get KO'd. Or she gets taken down and held down, and I don't really see Vieira being able to do that for at least 2 out of those 3 rounds, and if she's not doing that, I don't think she's winning the fight. So I'm going to take Dumont to outstrike Ketlen Vieira, to keep Vieira at distance, land good kicks to the body, land good kicks to the head, use that lead hand to kind of dictate the range where the fight takes place, the jab, the check hook, cutting the angles, moving around, popping the 1-2, and just winning a pretty clear-cut decision. So, give me Norma Dumont 30-27 unanimous decision. Could she finish? Yes. Are we going to bank on a finish in women's MMA? No. So, give me Dumont 30-27 unanimous decision. All right, up next, we got a battle in the middleweight division between Cedric the Reaper Dumas taking on Dante Johnson. Johnson coming off the Contender Series win, the first round knockout over Darian Abbey. Yeah, he beat a guy who's 7-4, blah, 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 blah. Cedric Dumas doesn't belong in the UFC. He doesn't take his career serious. He really has never taken his career serious, and you can't fault him for the last fight he had where he just got kicked in the nuts and then, everything went sideways and he couldn't continue. Kind of like Kevin Holland, but Holland did continue. But, based on this fight, man, I just don't see Dante Johnson losing. I'm never going to trust Dumas to win a fight in the UFC at this point, just based on, number one, recent performances, and number two, I just don't think his heart is all the way in the game, no matter what he says. So, I think Dante Johnson comes out. Is he the cleanest striker? No. But is he powerful? Yes. Does he hit hard? Yes. And does Dumas like getting hit hard? No. So that's really the analysis I'm going to go with. I could sit here and talk to you about, getting into the pocket, using the head movement, getting on the inside, ripping body shots and coming over the top, fighting in the pocket and things like that. But we don't really need that. I think Johnson hits hard. I don't think Dumas likes getting hit hard. And I think once Dumas does get hit hard, he's not going to find a way to come back. Do I think Dumas takes down Dante Johnson? No. Do I think he gets on top and beats him up from the top position? No. Do I think it's possible he catches him with like a long-range strike, like a head kick or something like that? Yeah, I think that's definitely possible. Dumas maybe could land like a knee up the middle if Johnson tries a level changer as he's coming in, or could land a head kick when he's at range, kind of like we saw Selkill do to Haqparast, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Johnson's going to come in here. I think he's going to walk him down. I think he's going to close that distance off. I think he's going to hurt him to the body, hurt him to the head, and I think he's going to finish with a flurry of punches up against the cage, and we're going to see Dumas leave the UFC and probably go back to jail. Not even shitting on the guy, but it's just like, how many times are we going to have to deal with this shit when it comes to Dumas, and why is he in the UFC to begin with? So, give me Dante Johnson, first round knockout. I think he comes in, does the damn thing, and wins in his UFC debut. And I think he finishes a guy who has shown quit, who has shown that he does not like to get hit, and who has shown that he will take the easy way out if you start to hurt him. So, give me Dante Johnson, round 1 KO, and we're going to move to the next one. All right, next fight up is in the bantamweight division. You got a battle between Timmy Cuamba taking on Chang Ho Lee. This is a really close fight. In my opinion, this is 50-50. And, I think Cuamba is the fighter who has shown more inside the UFC. I hold a win over Roberto Romero higher than I do a win over Cortavius Romeus. But we saw that Chang Ho Lee had good grappling, good takedowns, good ability to get to the top position, held the mount, landed big ground and pound. And I do think he's the better grappler than Cuamba. I think he probably can take him down. I think he more than likely is going to be the fighter in this fight who has more success with the wrestling. I think if it stays primarily a striking matchup, you'd have to be kind of crazy to not go with Timmy Cuamba. I think Cuamba is the much better boxer. I think Cuamba uses better range, better distance control, better footwork, moves in and out, throws solid shots, and I mean, I just don't really see it being competitive. I think it's kind of similar on the ground where Chang Ho Lee can take down Timmy Cuamba, get on top, probably wins a lot of minutes, but I almost feel like Cuamba is more competitive on the ground than Chang Ho Lee would be competitive on the feet. And, originally I wanted to take Chang Ho Lee, but I'm going to take Timmy Cuamba to win this fight. I think it could be a KO. I think it could be a decision. I think we're going to see a Timmy Cuamba who comes in and has more confidence after that win over Roberto Romero. And I'm going to say he actually finishes Chang Ho Lee late. I'm going to say a third-round TKO for Timmy Cuamba. I think Twilight Timmy comes in here, lands a jab, lands his 1-2s, throws that cross into the lead head kick, feints the jab, throws the lead head kick, follows with the cross. I think we're going to see a lot of good combinations. I think we're going to see a tentative first round, but I think Cuamba is going to start to pick up his jab. It's going to become easier to stuff the takedowns. He will get taken down, but I think he'll work his way back up to the feet, and I think he's just going to put a pace and pressure on Chang Ho Lee that he's not able to withstand, and I think Cuamba is just going to put that volume on him, use those boxing combinations, the kicks, the head kicks from range, and I think eventually he's just going to break down Chang Ho Lee. And at the time, I thought the win over Cortavius Romeus was decent, but at this point, I think we know that he's not, UFC level, and you can look at Ramon Taveras in the same light as, he knocked that guy out, comes into the UFC, doesn't have too much success. So yeah, I got to go Timmy Cuamba. I think he's better. I think he's more technical. I think he's better at range. I think he's much more comfortable on the feet. And I think what he really has to worry about is those takedowns and getting held down and grounded and pounded by Chang Ho Lee. I think Ho Lee is going to be, like I said, competitive early. I think he'll land some shots on the feet in his own right. I think most of the exchanges on the feet will take place probably in the boxing range. But I'm going to say that at the end of the day, I think Timmy Cuamba puts a pace and pressure on Chang Ho Lee that he's not able to withstand. And I think we're going to see this fight playing out where we're expecting it to go to a decision, but you could see Timmy building, and continuing to steal the momentum and land better strikes into the second and third round. And I think in the third round, he's going to land a big shot. Ho Lee's going to cover up, and I think Cuamba's going to put a combination on him that finishes him and sits him down. So give me Timmy Cuamba. Give me Twilight Timmy Cuamba. I believe that's his nickname, to win via third-round TKO over Chang Ho Lee. All right, up next, you got a battle in the light heavyweight division between Billy Elekana taking on Kevin Christian. We saw Christian come in on the Contender Series and win with that beautiful triangle choke. Billy Elekana is coming off of a win in his last fight as an underdog over Ibo Aslan. But it was a fight that just played out at distance, played out at range. Aslan just basically stood there and did nothing. And Elekana was the guy who did more in a fight where nobody really did anything, to be honest with you. I think a lot of people were very high on Billy Elekana coming into the UFC, and I think it's kind of slowed down here. Kevin Christian, we haven't heard much of anything after he came off the Contender Series. This is his first fight in the UFC. He's going to be at a 3-inch reach advantage, a 4-inch height advantage. And, this guy doesn't really have much striking. He throws wild shots, big looping left hooks and right hands, knees up the middle, elbows and things like that. But the bread and butter for Kevin Christian is going to be the grappling. I think the bread and butter is the submissions, the ability to find a way to take the opponent's back, to maybe jump guard, which I don't really advocate in MMA, especially in the UFC at the highest level. But this guy's going to look to grapple. He's going to look to jump guard, throw up submissions, look to set up a triangle, look to catch your neck. If we see Elekana shooting, he might catch his neck in a guillotine and transition it to a triangle. I know that's not common in the UFC, but this guy's long and long enough to maybe be able to pull that off. But I don't know, man. This is one where I don't really want to make a pick because on one hand, I think it looks like a setup fight for Elekana to win by KO. Like, Elekana's way better than this guy on the feet. He throws better. He's more technical. He's cleaner. But I feel like these setup fights, they never go the way you think when it's a setup fight, unless it's like a really high top-level guy beating a really low-level guy. And I don't consider Billy Elekana to be that high level. Like, I don't think he's a top guy in the UFC. I think he's good. I think he's solid. I think he has good submissions in his own right. I think he has good takedowns, and he's good on the mat. He's good with taking the back, good with submissions, and that's kind of the bread and butter of Christian. So, like, if Elekana tries to grapple in order to prove a point and wants to look for a submission himself, I feel like it's possible that Elekana could get caught slipping and get caught in an armbar, get caught in a triangle, get his back taken in a reversal, and get subbed. So, I think Kevin Christian's live to win here. If I'm going to play anything on Kevin Christian, or if you're going to ask me, hey, Double M, what should I play on this fight if I want to take Christian, I would honestly just play the Kevin Christian sub, because I think that's really his only win condition. But am I going to sit here and tell you I think it's the most likely outcome? No, but this is kind of an unknown. Like, we don't know much, but I'm going to go with Billy Elekana. I think Billy Elekana probably knocks this guy out. I just think he's way better on the feet. And every fight starts on the feet. I know I say that a lot now, but it's true. And, yeah, I'm going to take Elekana to KO this kid. I think he knocks him out. I think he's going to catch him with like a 1-2, rock him, and then just put some shots on him up against the cage and finish him off. But if Kevin Christian came in here and rocked Elekana with like a weird knee up the middle and then subbed him, I wouldn't be surprised. But, yeah, I'm going to take Billy Elekana for the pick. Betting, maybe different. I might look at Christian by sub. I think it's 6-1. But give me Billy Elekana by knockout. I'm going to take Elekana round 2 TKO over Kevin Christian. All right, next fight up is a catchweight bout, but it's basically a flyweight match between Alan Nascimento taking on Cody Durden. Yeah, if Durden comes out here and puts a pace and pressure on Nascimento, if he puts that pace on him, if he continues to get takedowns, if he holds him down from the top position, then yeah, I think Durden can win. But at the end of the day, I just think Nascimento is going to be too good with the scrambles. He's going to be too good at finding ways to get on top, finding ways to set up submissions and sweeps. And I think he's better on the feet. Like, I think Nascimento probably is the better striker, throwing those front kicks to the body, throwing the 1-2s and things like that. But at the end of the day, man, I think it probably plays out in a grappling aspect. I think the better wrestler is Durden, and a lot of the times you want to take the better wrestler over the guy who's primarily jiu-jitsu. But I think Nascimento's good enough to scramble with Durden, and I think Durden can get caught up in some of those scrambles and eventually just get worn down in this fight. Like, I know Durden is a tough guy, but Durden doesn't have the best cardio. Like, people are going to look at his pace, the embrace the grind, the wrestling, the takedowns, the takedowns, the takedowns. I think Nascimento can kind of hang in there with him by using the scrambles to open up submission attempts, open up sweeps, and open up reversals on the mat and eventually get to the top. And I think it's going to kind of play out in a way where Nascimento is going to just eventually start to win better positions than Durden. And I think it's going to be a late submission win for Alan Nascimento. I think he's going to be able to kind of wear out Durden by using his best weapons against him, going for subs on the takedown attempt, setting up subs off of his back. And I think eventually he's going to, allow for Durden to just wear himself out with the wrestling and then eventually take his back and get a rear naked choke. So I'm going to go with a late second round rear naked choke submission for Alan Nascimento. But I believe we played the Estevam and Nascimento fight, or not Estevam and Nascimento. There was a fight recently with Nascimento where we played the fight 10 by sub, and somehow it didn't. Let me see. Was it off Estevam? No, Filo. Jafel Filio. We played that fight to end by sub, and somehow it went to the scorecards after 75 different submission attempts. But, yeah, I'm going to go with Nascimento here. I think he's the rightful favorite. I think he's better. I think he's more well-rounded. I think he has more left in the tank, and I think he's going to eventually catch Durden slipping and get him with a rear naked choke. So give me Alan Nascimento to win. Second round rear naked choke submission over Cody Durden. Up next, you got a battle in the welterweight division between Charles Chuck Buffalo Radtke taking on Daniel Frunza. Now, If you guys know me, I picked Frunza to win on the Contender Series over Vadim Kutsi. I played him as the underdog, got it done. He finished him by TKO. Charles Radtke, man, I picked that guy against Mike Malott. I thought he was going to come in there and knock that dude out. I thought Malott was a fraud. I'm going to be honest with you, I still think Malott's a fraud. I still think he's not as good as the UFC is touting him out to be. But he did knock out Charles Radtke with a big left hook and then finished him off on the ground. I believe it was a left hook. Maybe it was a different shot, but he dropped him, jumped on him, finished him off. You know, Frunza's a guy who we've seen can come back from adversity. Like, he can get dropped, he can get hurt, and come back and push the pace. And I think that's really the only way he's going to win against Radtke. I think it's going to be primarily a striking matchup. I don't really see either guy shooting for takedowns, but if anybody does, I think it's probably going to be Frunza who shoots for takedowns. Or, I'm sorry, Radtke who shoots for takedowns. Gets on top, looks to beat him up on the ground, maybe looks to set up a submission, but I wouldn't bank on that. I think this is going to be a striking match. I think it's going to be a kickboxing match. I think the better boxer is Radtke. He's got a good 1-2. He really sells out for that left hook. He full sends it, quote unquote. Daniel Frunza is a guy who has good head kicks. He can mix up his punching to his kicking and then blend it together. Good head kicks, good lead leg, roundhouse kicks to the head. Solid boxing in his own right. I think this is a close fight, man. I think people may be sour on Frunza because of the way he got beat up by Reese McGee, who didn't have a win in the UFC prior to that. And on that note, I do agree. Like, I think that was a really bad look, especially in a fight where I think it was kind of set up for Frunza to win and to win by finish. But it didn't work out that way. He got dropped a bunch of times, and then the fight was stopped in between the first and the second round due to a cut. I mean, his lip, I think it was his lip, was just like basically hanging off. I think Radtke has a lot of power, and if it plays out with those boxing exchanges, Radtke's probably going to land that right hand. Radtke's probably going to land that left hook, and he's probably going to land it right on the chin. I'm going to go with the guy I trust more at this point, and I'm going to take Charles Radtke. I'm going to trust him to come back and bounce back in the win column here. I think he knocks out Frunza. I really didn't like the look against Reese McGee. If Reese McGee's doing that to you, I think Radtke can sit you down early and probably put you away. And even on the Contender Series, you know, he put him down, and then he ended up coming back and getting that TKO himself, kind of just wearing out Kutsi and beating him until he gave up. I think this is a similar possibility here, because even if you go back and you look at the Reese McGee fight, I think Daniel Frunza was kind of starting to land some shots of his own towards the end of that first round. He took the best shots from McGee, and he was starting to come back. So I think if you're on the side of Frunza, you probably play Frunza KO 2-3, because I think that's a smart way to look at it. And if you're on the side of Radtke, it's probably in the first round or the first 1 or 2 rounds. So I would take Radtke by KO in the first 2 rounds. I think the fight ends by knockout. I think one of these guys is going to hit the deck just based on the way that they fight. And I'm going to take Charles Radtke just because I think it's probably going to take place mainly in boxing range, and I think Radtke has the sharper boxing. I think they're going to get into exchanges. I think Radtke's going to land that left hook. I think he's going to hurt Frunza, and I think he's going to put him away. So give me Chuck Buffalo. Give me C-Buff. Give me Charles Radtke to win. I'm going to take Charles Radtke by round 1 knockout over Daniel Frunza, but I would not be surprised if Frunza cracked the chin of Radtke and knocked him out. 100% I wouldn't be surprised. So the play for this fight is the fight ends by KO at like -140, -150. I think that's a good way to play it. But the pick's going to be Charles Radtke. I'm going to take Radtke round 1 knockout. Probably landing that left hook on his chin and putting him down. All right, next fight up is in the featherweight division. You got a battle between Isaac Dulgarian, the Midwest Choppa, taking on Yadier Del Valle. Or Yadier Del Valle, however you want to say it. And honestly, guys, this is a great fight, man. We picked Del Valle last time he competed against Connor Matthews. We seem to have a pretty good trajectory on picking Connor Matthews fights. We did pick him as the underdog on his Contender Series fight. That was a long time ago. I didn't have a YouTube video up for that card, I don't believe. But when I look at this fight, I think the wrestling and forward pressure and takedowns are going to be way too much for Del Valle. If you're on the side of Yadier Del Valle, I think you probably take him to win in round 2 and 3. That's the way I would play it. Like, if I'm taking a look at Delija as the underdog, I would say, he's probably going to get taken down, out-wrestled, controlled, put in submission attempts, ground and pounded in the first round. Probably a little bit of the same in the second round, but when we get into that 8, 9, 10 minutes and past, that might be where the gas tank of Dulgarian can kind of bite him in the proverbial ass, right? So early on, I think it's all Dulgarian unless he shoots a bad takedown and gets his neck caught and gets submitted. So I think an early sub for Delija is potentially live, probably a front choke. It would be like a guillotine or an anaconda on one of the takedown attempts of Dulgarian. I think the striking, I don't think Delija has much striking, but at the same time, I kind of think maybe the striking would be competitive. I'll say on the feet it's 50-50, but I think a lot of the times this plays out, it's going to play out as a grappling match more times than not. And it's usually going to be the defensive grappling and defensive submission game of Delija against the takedowns, top control, ground and pound, and sub attempts of Dulgarian. So in any scenario, I see Dulgarian being the aggressor early, and it's just can Delija either survive or catch him slipping with a sub attempt early in the fight. I don't think Delija is going to survive. I don't. Listen, I like Delija. I made a lot of money the last time he beat up Conor Matthews. But in this one, I just think, I picked Dulgarian against C-Rod. That was one of the best picks ever until C-Rod somehow survived and dominated the third round. But the first 2 rounds, easy Dulgarian. Could have even been a 10-8 round 1. But I think the fight was a draw. I don't think C-Rod actually won it. I'll die on that hill because that's what I think. I think Dulgarian beat Christian Rodriguez. 2 rounds to 1 or a draw. There's no other way to put it. When I see this fight, though, if I'm playing Delija, I would play Delija to win in round 3, which I think is 16-1 or something like that, because I don't see an early finish from Delija in this scenario and with this style of matchup. But honestly, I just don't think Delija is going to be able to survive. So I think the wrestling, the top pressure, the ground and pound, the submission attempts, I think it's going to be too much. I think we're going to see Dulgarian aggressive, but more measured with his sub attempts, and I think that's going to aid in his gas tank being better. And I think eventually Delija is going to get caught in a, you know what? I'm going to say a Peruvian necktie, man. He got real close to catching that necktie against Christian Rodriguez. I'm going to say Dulgarian goes out here and gets a Peruvian necktie in the first round. Yeah, so give me the Midwest chopper. I'm a pretty big fan of this guy. I like this guy's style. He is a grappler, but he is aggressive, and he will look to fuck you up when this fight goes to the ground. So, I got Dulgarian. Give me Dulgarian round 2. Maybe round 1. Yeah, give me round 1. I think this guy's going to come out hot. Give me Dulgarian round 1 Peruvian necktie submission over Yadier Delija. Yadier Delija, however you want to say his name. Give me him over YDV with the Peruvian neck TIE in round 1. Dulgarian by subs 3-1. I take a shot on that all day, every day. But I'm going to go with the Midwest chopper. Give me Dulgarian round 1 Peruvian necktie submission. All right, now we're at the featured bout. I think I said that the last fight was the featured bout of the evening, so forgive me if I'm wrong. Like I said, I don't want to make this breakdown too long, but I want to give you, insightful information. Jeremiah Wells versus Temba Gorimbo. Listen, I understand people taking the shot on Wells as the underdog. He's definitely going to be the more aggressive fighter. He's going to be the more powerful fighter. He's going to be the fighter who is going to probably have the more finishing upside or the higher finishing upside in this match. But I do not think Wells is technically a good fighter. I think Wells has a lot of power, and he's strong. And I think that's what wins him most of his fights. I don't think he's technically good. I don't think he's technically sharp. I don't think he's defensively good. And I think he makes a lot of mistakes by just thinking he's going to come in here and overpower his opponent and win. And it works sometimes, And I don't think Temba Gorimbo is the greatest defensive fighter. I don't think that he is incapable of being finished. I've seen the guy get dropped. I've seen him get hurt. I've seen him get dropped and subbed by Vicente Luque. But with this fight, man, I just don't see Wells ground and pounding Temba Gorimbo or holding him down for 15 minutes. And if that's the case, I think that Temba Gorimbo probably can finish Jeremiah Wells. But if we look at it from like a stylistic perspective and we're looking at the statistics, like Temba Gorimbo, 14-5, Wells 12-4, but he's going to be 6'1", he's going to have a 3-inch reach and height advantage, and he's going to use it. But I think Wells is the type of guy where he already knows he's going to be at a height and reach disadvantage. Like, he's just going to come forward and try to knock you out. Big hooks, big uppercuts, and he's going to try to overpower you and take you down. I feel like he's probably going to take a Carlston Harris type of approach to this fight where he just closes the distance, gets Gorimbo on his back, tries to land big ground and pound, and probably looks to win on the scorecards. This is a fight that I don't think goes the distance, but I think a lot of people might play doesn't go the distance, and it could bite them because I think you're either expecting a knockout on the feet from Gorimbo, who's the cleaner, sharper striker, or you're expecting Wells to take him down and probably finish him with ground and pound. I don't think sub. I know he got subbed by Luque, but I feel like it would probably be a ground and pound TKO for Jeremiah Wells. So, like, if I'm going to take the fight to end by finish, right, if I want to play doesn't go the distance, I would look at the fight ends by KO, which, let me see what that's listed right now on DraftKings. I'm going to check the odds. Let's see. Gorimbo and Wells ends by KO. Here we go. It's plus 175. You know, I really don't mind that because I think on the feet, Gorimbo is going to be at a power disadvantage, but he's going to be the sniper, and I think Wells has a bad chin, so he could get knocked out. And I think at the same time, I think Wells is going to be pushing forward, landing big overhands and hooks, which could knock Gorimbo out. He could follow up with ground and pound, or he could get on top on the ground and land a bunch of ground and pound and finish him that way. I don't really see a sub from Wells, even though, yeah, he got subbed by Luque, but it's a different style of matchup. He doesn't have the long arms and stuff like Luque does, so I don't really see a sub from him. And Gorimbo, I don't see a sub from him. The win for Gorimbo over Ramiz Brahimaj, where we actually took Brahimaj, that looks really good right now because Brahimaj is coming out here and messing people up. So I'm going to take that into my consideration for this fight, and based on the fact that I think Gorimbo is the sharper fighter, the more disciplined fighter, and the more technical fighter, and I'm going to say Gorimbo comes out here and knocks him out. So I'm going to take Temba Gorimbo. I'm going to say Gorimbo by round 2 KO. I think he catches him with a right hand as he's closing the distance and finishes him off with some ground and pound. I just don't trust the chin. I think both guys' chins are suspect, but I really don't trust the chin of Wells, and I would probably trust Gorimbo a little bit more. So I'm going to take the guy who I think is smarter, more well-rounded, has the physical attributes in his favor, and is more technical. So give me Temba Gorimbo to win. I'm going to say round 2. Round 2 knockout. I'm going to say he catches him with the right hand as he tries to close the distance and then finishes him off with ground and pound. So the pick's going to be Temba, round 2 KO, and we'll move on to the co-main event. All right, now we're at the co-main event of the evening in the heavyweight division. You got a battle between Waldo Cortes Acosta taking on Ante Delija. This is one where I think Delija is going to win. I think that the Marcin Tybura fight was a good fight for him. I mean, obviously I picked Tybura. It looked like a horrible pick. I knew in my heart of hearts that was a bad pick, so I can't blame anyone but myself for taking it. But what we saw from Delija is, fast punches for the heavyweight division, combination punches, which is very hard to find in the heavyweight division. It's a lot of 1 or 2 punches at a time, and decent forward pressure. I think if Cortes Acosta's smart, he wrestles here, takes down Delija, gets on top, tries to win the minutes on the clock, or, he can catch him with a big counter and knock him out. The takedown defense from Cortes Acosta held up in the Sergey Pavlovich fight. It looked nice. Not Pavlovich. Well, Pavlovich, he won the fight. He lost the Pavlovich fight by decision, but it held up in the Sergey Spivak fight. Sergey Spivak. And he won that fight pretty handedly. I think Cortes Acosta's good. He knocked out Ryan Spann. He's got a good jab, beautiful check left hook, solid 1-2s. He's got that fastball overhand right everybody likes to talk about. Oh, he was a baseball player, yada, yada, yada. Cortes Acosta showed he has a good chin. He's not easy to KO. I think he's fast, but I honestly think Delija is faster. And training with Tom Aspinall, I think that plays a factor in his success, at least in the grand scheme of things. I think it'll make him a more successful fighter in the UFC in the heavyweight division, considering that, he's fighting in the division and training with the guy who's the champion of the world in that division. I think Cortes Acosta could win by knockout. If what I think he's going to do is I think he's going to look to wrestle. I think he's going to look to take down Delija, keep him on the mat, and hold him there. I feel like Delija is going to be able to get back up to his feet. I feel like Delija is faster than Cortes Acosta. And even if he's not faster, like, in actual, like, scientific terms, I feel like he throws more combinations and he throws more volume, which in turn is going to kind of make him a faster fighter here. Like, I think he'll throw 2, 3, 4 punches while Cortes Acosta is going to throw 1 or 2. And it's going to be a big left hook. He's always going to set up that jab, bop, 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 try to throw a big overhand right, jab, throw a big uppercut. Like, it's never going to be 4, 5, 6 punches from Cortes. It's just not. Delija, we still don't really know, man. The jury's not out on him yet in terms of how much success he can have, at least inside the UFC. So, on one hand, I think maybe you're getting a discount on Cortes Acosta, even though it's basically, kind of close to even money at this point. Maybe you're getting a discount on the guy who's more UFC proven, right? We've heard UFC proven, UFC experience, yada, yada, yada. It does mean something. Look at Robelis de Spain. He was a big favorite against Cortes, and he got taken down and out-wrestled. I don't think Delija is going to be the similar story, though. I don't think he's going to be able to take down Delija and hold him there, and he's not going to be able to get back up. I think we knew that there was a big hole in the grappling of de Spain, and he just never patched that hole up, and he lost to Austin fucking Lane, too, which is what a great way to go out in the UFC. But he's doing good in karate combat, so it is what it is. I like Delija here. I think he's faster. I think he has more volume, which in turn makes him faster. And I think Cortes Acosta doesn't have enough volume to win on the scorecards, and I don't think he's going to be able to take down and hold down Delija for 2 or 3 rounds. So at the end of the day, I'm going to go Ante Delija. I'm going to go Delija by KO. I'm going to go Ante Delija by second round TKO. I could see decision, and I think even if it goes to a decision, he might have the equity to win that decision because that he's going to be throwing more volume and he's going to be faster in terms of at least what the judges see. So I don't think Costa has enough, or Acosta. I don't think Waldo Cortes Acosta has enough volume to win on the scorecards, and I don't see him holding them down, and that's what it comes down to. So give me Ante Delija. Give me Delija by second round. Well, let's go first round again. Fuck it. Let's go Ante Delija, first round knockout over Waldo Cortes Acosta. But decision is definitely live, so if you want to take a shot, I wouldn't be mad at you. All right, now we're at the main event of the evening in the featherweight division. A very interesting fight, too, between Steve the Mean Machine Garcia taking on David Onama. I know a lot of people who don't regularly watch MMA are going to look at this main event and think that it's not supposed to be a main event. This isn't main event worthy. I understand you from one perspective, but another thing I can tell you is that this isn't going to be a main event where they just stand and stare at each other and play on the outside. They're going to go to war, in my opinion, and I think the fighter who's going to come out on top in that war, I've been going back and forth the last couple days because one day I was on one side, then I'm thinking about it, I'm on the other, then I'm back on the other side, and then I'm back here. I think this is like 51-49 with the way I'm leaning it, but I'm going to pick, drum roll please, I'm going to go David Onama. I'm not confident in it either. So don't sit here and say, oh, you picked Onama and this happened. Listen, I'm interested in this fight from a perspective of I think somebody's getting bonked and I think they're getting KO'd. But I think the fighter who can win more minutes in between this knockout happening is David Onama. I look back to the Gabriel Santos fight. Like, yeah, he got taken down. He got controlled. He got put on his back, blah, 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 and things like that. Not put on his back, but, he got caught in a submission. He defended. Onama's very calm, even in scenarios where he gets hurt. And I know I picked Kelvin Kattar against Garcia, and that looked like a bad pick. But, Kattar just didn't fight. Kattar didn't fight. He played the game for too long, and he got beat. We've seen that happen to Kattar plenty of times, and, you know, it was just a similar situation to that. I think the fighter who can wrestle more in this fight, if the wrestling needs to happen, is Onama. I think he can get takedowns. I think he can get on top. I think he can look for subs. But for the most part, I think it's going to be a kickboxing fight. And I think the fighter who's going to be able to capitalize on the opponent's mistakes more is David Onama. He's got a very good short uppercut we saw against... what's his name? Gabriel Santos. You know, I was just talking about him, already forgot. He's got a very good short uppercut. I think he can mix in knees and elbows inside the clinch. And I think the way you have to catch Garcia is you just have to catch him coming in. You have to catch him with a counter. I don't really think you're ever going to beat Garcia just walking forward and throwing, you know, exchanges with him in the pocket. But what you have to do is kind of wait it out, find the openings, and catch him in between the space of his shots. So you basically have to fight a counter-fighting approach, or you have to just put things out there that are going to stop him from being able to crowd you and push you against the fence and really go to work and try to put you out. Because he's called the mean machine for a reason. Like when this guy smells blood, he's going to come forward, he's going to get in your face, and he's going to try to hurt you. He's not just going to try to win the fight, he's going to try to hurt you. Onama, we've seen him get dropped, we've seen him get put on his ass, we've seen him get rocked, we've seen him come back. I think if he gets hurt by Garcia, it's a problem, but I think he has good technical skills on the feet to where he can catch him in between those wild chaos moments. When he's throwing big left hooks and right hooks and uppercuts, I think he can catch him with an elbow. I think he can catch him with a knee up the middle. I think he can catch him coming in with a big uppercut. And even in the fight that Garcia won against, not Kattar, the fight before that, not Chang Ho Lee, was it? No. Hold on, who was it? Let's see. He beat somebody. Oh, Choi. Sungwoo Choi. So in that fight, before he won, I mean, he got rocked. He got stumbled. He got hurt. But he just pushed forward and dogged him out. I think Onama is the type of guy where, like, you might be able to dog him out for a certain period of time, but eventually he's going to come back and he's going to land big shots. And I think that short, crisp striking, the elbows, the knees, the short uppercuts, I think that's what you got to do to beat Garcia, because you have to land little shots that he's not going to see. So he might walk forward, he might hurt Onama, he might pressure him, he might try to land elbows and knees in the clinch, and he might be the one getting hit with a counter elbow. He might be the one changing levels, getting hit with a big uppercut. He might be the one playing on the inside, throwing big shots. Boom, getting hit with an elbow over the top. Boom, getting hit with an uppercut up the middle. And I think those short shots, the uppercuts, the elbows, and the knees are what's going to win David Onama this fight. And I think he's going to knock Steve Garcia out. We say it so many times, like, this guy's chin isn't great. He's been KO'd before. You know, who's going to shut the lights out? I think David Onama has the style to knock him out and do it impressively in the main event. So give me the underdog. Give me David Onama. Give me David Onama by a round 2 knockout. I think he's going to catch Steve Garcia with one of those uppercuts, put him down, and finish him off. I'm going David Onama, round 2 KO in the main event of UFC Vegas 110. And that's it, guys. Those are my preview predictions and breakdown for this event. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and smash the notification bell for all future uploads. And make sure to leave your predictions for these fights in the comment section below. I'm your host, Double M, and I'm out.